Hello YouTube, this is Neon. This talk is going to be on compassionate listening. This is part 1. I'm going to be talking about some intimate parts of my life that are relevant to this in a moment. So, listening, or compassionate listening, like love, is an action word. Compassionate listening is an action word that does not require the mouth. Very, very little. One listens with their ears and not with their mouth. One listens with their ears, with their mind, with their eyes, with their heart. Involves the mouth very little. I'm going to recommend highly that if you're watching this video now, that you watch the last one. I think you should watch every one of these videos because I think they're going to be good. But especially the last one, because there's always pitfalls to improving one's life, and I'll go into that towards the end. I'm going to say that compassionate listening has the power of life and death in its hands. While listening don't have hands, or compassionate listening don't have hands, compassionate listening has the power of life and death. Compassionate listening really comes into play when people are talking about their dreams, and in general, dreams that are above what our world system says is a legitimate dream, which is go to school, get a degree, get a good job. When the dreams are beyond that, that dream is so, I don't know if the word is sacrosanct is the correct word, but that dream becomes almost like religiously holy, and it's unquestioned. So I'm not talking about sharing that dream. I'm talking about people who want to be millionaires, people who want to be philanthropists, people who want to be social justice warriors and change laws, people who want to do great things for charity. Compassionate listening really comes in that situation, as well as when people are sharing trauma, mental illness, how they survived a rape, incest, abuse. Compassionate listening is very instrumental in those situations. Okay. I was scratching my back. I think y'all know what's happening. The pen was just acting up. So please, when you, as I go through this series, look at this more from the perspective of how can I practice compassionate listening versus here's how I want other people to listen to me. So it's better to put this into practice. Now, I'm going to be brief so that I stay on point with this talk about compassionate listening as I talk about personal aspects of my life. I am into dominance and submission, or also it is known as S&M or BDSM. S&M being sadomasochism, BDSM being bondage, discipline, sadomasochism. Dominance and submission is the PC way of referring to S&M or BDSM. I'm going to use the PC term, hopefully I will remember from now on, and simply say dominance and submission. Really briefly, please try to be open-minded. Please try to be open-minded. Why I'm saying this will make sense in a moment. Please try not to judge. No, people who are into dominance and submission, they're not sick. Most do not have mental illness. I am the exception. Most do not have a history of being sexually abused through their childhood or physically abused through their childhood. I am the exception. Most submissives have, and dominants for that matter, dom, sub, right? Most come from middle class, upper middle class, and even wealthy class. I am poverty class, so in that I am the exception as well. And it really gave me a unique look into the world of dominance and submission. The typical person into dominance and submission would be more interested on the submissive side, and they would come from a power background. So they may be an executive, an attorney, they boss people around, they may be in corrections, they may be a teacher, they may hire and fire, they may be a business owner. And for them, in the bedroom, it's just really fun to have an opportunity to be submissive and not have to be telling people what to do. For me, it's sort of the opposite in that I put so much time into personal growth and being pro-social and not taking my bad day out on the street or to strangers out on the street, but rather being patient when things are crazy around me. I put so much work into that. Being a dom is a break from that, where I get to misbehave and be rewarded and show people an amazing time. I also sub as well. Now, I'm telling you all of this to say that within the dominance and submission community, there is a tradition that is common whereby when a submissive has a worthy dom, okay, I shouldn't put it in quotes, when a submissive has a worthy dom, they want to do something to make their dom's life better. Dom meaning dominant. I would say a woman dominant or a male dominant. Dominatrix is used, but I consider that the sensationalized term. I may do a series on dominance and submission and go into more detail, but I want to stay on track. So as the sub wants to do something to show gratitude to their dom, their worthy dom, for showing them a great time, they want to do something to make their dom's life better. That could be cleaning their restroom, cleaning their toilet, cleaning their dishes or their kitchen, cleaning their balcony. It can be showing them a nice dinner. It can be, sometimes it could even be cash. These are ways in which subs work to make their dom's lives better, to show that respect. Because being a good dom can be incredibly exhausting and taxing. Now, I didn't want any of these. Being a person who struggles with mental illness, functioning on the outside has been a meter or an index for my mental health status. So me keeping my toilet clean and my restroom clean and my tiny itsy bitsy little kitchenette clean, my body clean, these are important for me to do alone. In the last 9 years I've been on SSI, in the last 12 years? Yeah, 12 years, thereabouts, where I've been on SSI. I've only worked for about four or five of those years, and much of that has been part-time. And so I've had to learn to live off very little, and I'm proud of that. So money's out of the question. What I wanted from my submissives was compassionate listening, for me showing them a mind-blowing time. And none of them were able to give that to me. The reason is that compassionate listening is not easy. It's not easy at all. It means that a person listens, shows interest, gives cues to show that they are following the person, but they don't interject their thoughts, opinions, advice, comparisons, tell the person how they should feel. None of that is listening, that's talking. And I found that my submissives were not able to do that. I found that because I am poverty class, I'm on SSI, I struggle with mental illness, that they did not consider me their equal. Because they had a car and a degree and a good job generally, and they were not able to listen compassionately to me as I talked about my issues. I want to say that I was with a Dr. Robinson, who is a psychologist, an amazing psychologist, for a year. And I had congratulated him on doing such a great job of listening to me, rarely interjecting. And he told me, well, Neon, you read so much personal growth and self-help, and I see you applying these principles, and I see you growing, and the way you're growing is sound. He said, so I really feel that my best place here is to allow you to use me as a sounding board, and you don't really need me to interject much advice. He said, however, with my other patients, I do interrupt much more often, and I do make suggestions, and I do recommend books and this kind of stuff. He said, but you're doing a lot of this stuff already. One book he did recommend was called People of the Lie. I may do a book on a review on this book in the future. People of the Lie by M. Scott Peck. And I did read that book, by the way, but he rarely interjected. So I'm saying that so that you know that me expecting people to listen was sound, okay? If a doctorate in psychology felt that that was sound. Now, I will be referring to past subs and my experience with them as they were trying to perform compassionate listening. So the reason I even have this talk written down and committed to paper was because I needed to, in part of my training of subs, which is very common for people who take dominance and submission as a very spiritual and almost sacred interaction and intimacy between two people, the Dom will typically train the sub. And I really wanted to train them in how they were going to help me to make my life better through compassionate listening, because I have all this trauma, and I still do, and I needed to work through it, and what I needed was someone to be a sounding board. As I said, they were not able to do that. Initially, I would just tell them, and they would usually be able to listen well for the first 2 or 3 times we met. Then they would begin to interrupt and interject their thoughts into what I had to say. And so I put this down to paper, and as part of my training, I would take them through this. Now, I only took 2 submissives through this talk that I'm going to be taking you beautiful people. But one of them had said, you know, this was amazing. This talk you gave about listening was amazing. He had applied it in a job situation and made his job work better, but he wasn't able to apply it with me because he wasn't making no money off of me. And he told me I should do this as a public talk sometime. I didn't think it would be on YouTube, but I think that you'll find this to be helpful. So I am going to end here, and I'm going to go into more detail about compassionate listening in part 2. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share, comment commercials. Do one or more of those things. Thank you.